WNST Taos here and very much into a great week of Baltimore sports. Luke Jones joins us right now to talk all things Orioles baseball, but he will be on the backfields at Owings Mills all day today, tomorrow, and every other day, sweating it out with the Ravens. But meanwhile, the Orioles have certainly kept pace here, Lucas. A nice, impressive victory from them on Tuesday night against another first-place team. But more than that, it was the Dylan Bundy show on Tuesday night at Camden Yards.
Yeah, I said this to you after his last start against Colorado, where he's flirting with a perfect game going into the sixth inning with a no-hitter. He's becoming appointment TV. If you're a big-time Orioles fan, you're watching the games anyway, but even if you're just more of a casual fan, you try to catch a few games a week, he's someone you don't want to miss. He was brilliant on Tuesday night. You look at that Texas lineup that was already pretty good. They added Carlos Beltran and Jonathan LaCroix at the trade deadline. Yeah, that lineup 1 through 9 is stacked. It really is. And Dylan Bundy was masterful. 7 innings, 1 hit allowed, 7 strikeouts, takes a no-hitter into the 6th. Just really, really impressive what he's been able to do. And we're finally seeing it. We've talked about this kid for 5 years.
We have. I know I have. I've talked about him more than he's pitched, that's for sure.
For 3 years dealing with injuries and so many, we just got through the waiver or the non-waiver trade deadline, and how many times was his name mentioned in potential deals. The organization didn't want to deal him away, and the reason why is they felt he could be a legitimate ace. Now, he's not there yet. This is only a few starts, as I wrote at WNST.net. Believe it or not, as much as we try to block out what happened for much of the last 15 to 20 years, especially on the starting pitching side, Dylan Bundy isn't the only rookie to start fast. Check out what Josh Towers did in his first handful of starts.
I do remember that very, very well.
Yeah.
You're going to the Wayback Machine now. I like that.
Yeah. Brad Bergeson was the Orioles' best starter in 2009 as a rookie. Mike Wright last year, 14 1/3 scoreless innings in his first 2 major league starts. So, this can be very fleeting, but as I wrote, there's just something that looks different and feels different about this. Any pitcher can get good results for a few outings. Any pitcher, good or bad. But Bundy and Darren O'Day talked about this a little bit after the game, and he was interviewed, I believe it was earlier this season, and he said the very first time he saw this kid at 19 years old throwing a bullpen in Major League Spring Training back in 2012, he said he was just blown away by. He has good stuff, but many guys have good stuff. It's the command with Bundy that is so impressive. I mean, you just have seen him over his last couple starts consistently dotting the catcher's glove. Wherever Matt Wieters or Caleb Joseph have set up, he's been hitting the glove. And it's just been really, really fun to watch. And again, you look at what he's done his last 3 starts, Texas, Colorado, Cleveland before that. These are 3 of the best, these are top 10 kind of offenses in terms of runs scored. So it's not as though he's had some favorable matchups.
And by the way, Camden Yards is not an easy place to pitch, right?
Exactly.
I mean, giving up a pop fly on a 90-degree night, it becomes a run.
Exactly. So he's been terrific. And it's funny because Buck Showalter was asked after the game if when he finally gave up a hit to have his no-hitter broken up in the 6th inning, he was asked, was he disappointed for Bundy, or was he secretly a little relieved, just understanding that we all know his pitch count isn't at a point where he was going to go anywhere close to being able to finish off a no-hitter. And Buck kind of slyly said, I'll never tell, but then he acknowledged he wasn't going to go any longer than 7 innings, regardless of whether he had a no-hitter at that point or not.
Well, he was doing okay on pitch count against a regular pitcher, against the starter who had been starting for a period of time, but against the guy that had only thrown 50 pitches as of 3 weeks ago, right? And him being the great hope for the organization now. Last thing you want to do is have him out there at 105, 110 pitches.
Yeah, you have to be smart about this. He's clearly giving you something today. He's giving you something in the present, but this kid's a big part of the tomorrow, and I think we're really starting to see that. I mean, he's doing it at the major league level, and he's doing it at a very high level. So you have to be smart about that. I think that same question almost extends to the big picture of the rest of this season. We assume the assumption is that he does have an innings limit, although the organization is being very tight-lipped about that. I assume for competitive reasons at this point. But, what is that? Is it 90 innings? Is it 100 innings? Is it 110 innings? How do you do that? Do you skip them a couple starts here and there to try to get them into September or maybe October if you're fortunate and play well over the final 2 months? There's so many questions there that we're not going to get an answer for right now. But in the meantime, he is helping you out right now. That's something that you never could have expected, and certainly we know that they're in a position where they started him because, well, they didn't have enough guys doing the job. So, they're a little bit of the unplanned going into this, but you have to continue to be smart, and I think everyone just continues to cross their fingers a little bit tighter each time he goes out and pitches the way he's pitching over his last couple outings. He was terrific, and it's funny. I saw so many different people commenting on Twitter that I can't remember when a rookie starting pitcher for the Orioles provided this much hope, this much excitement.
Well, there was Ben McDonald, and then there was Messina, right? So I don't know the last one, though, right? Wait, who was the last phenom this organization had? I mean, they talked about Matt Riley and a couple of people like that. Rocky Coppinger was a guy who was fantastic in the minor leagues and never made it in the big leagues. But, to Bundy, he's got 59 innings right now. You mentioned an inning count for him on the year, much like Strasburg had, some other guys famously had. He has gone out there 26 different times. Now, only 4 times as a starter, but 22 times as a reliever. I don't know that any of us saw this happening in April or May, but I think when June and into July, he started to look better out of the bullpen, and I guess that's where the light went on. And let's be honest, we talked about this 3 weeks ago. Luke, this was done out of necessity, not out of choice. I mean, this was because the Tyler Wilsons and the Mike Wrights could not come up and give them 6 or 7 innings. I don't think they wanted to make Bundy a starter at all this year.
No, that wasn't their plan. But one, he started pitching that well. I mean, you mentioned it was really around the end of May when things, the light bulb came on, and the reason why is they started giving him more of a starter schedule. From the point when he was pitching out of the bullpen, when they started giving him at least 3 days rest, that's now 40 innings since that's happened. A 2.25 ERA, 34 hits allowed, 47 strikeouts, so more than a strikeout per inning. 6 home runs allowed, which that's okay over 40 innings, and 9 walks. I mean, that's still a small sample, but it's not that small. It's a big enough sample to get excited about those types of numbers.
Well, we need something to be excited about here, especially in the starting rotation, right? I mean, we were never going to get excited about Gallardo or Jimenez at this point. We'll see how Wade Miley is. But if Bundy has suddenly become the number 2, if in September he pitches like a number 2, that's going to bode very, very well for the Orioles heading into October.
It is. And again, I think everyone is excited, but everyone also doesn't want to get ahead of themselves with this because it is only a few starts. But he's been pitching this well since late May, so it's not as though this isn't Chris Waters coming up and throwing 8 shutout innings in his first start as a journeyman kind of minor leaguer. This is a 23-year-old kid. Amazingly, his 7 innings on Tuesday night, the longest outing of his professional career. That's including the minor leagues. His longest start in the minor leagues, I looked it up, August 1st, 2012, when he was pitching for Frederick. He was at Lynchburg. He pitched 6 2/3 innings. That was his longest start of his professional career Tuesday night. So just amazing to see that, but also it's really a reflection on the lack of experience he had. I mean, because of the injuries, this is a guy who hadn't pitched above Double-A going into this year. So it's terribly exciting. I think it's scary in some ways because, again, you don't want to be clouded too much by the present and jeopardize his
3 weeks
future.
ago, we didn't know if he could get to the 5th inning, right? I mean, literally.
Right. And again, I'll be the one. I'm using superlatives here. I'll pump the brakes a little bit too because he is going to run into some challenges. Teams are going to see him more. He's going to start against teams for a second time in some cases. And
as Buck says, the other team's major league hitters too. They'll figure it out, right? Yeah,
exactly. But the thing that helps him compete and the thing that makes him a little less difficult to figure out if you're the opposition is this kid has 3 pitches that are good. He's got a mid-90s fastball. That'll play certainly as a starter. He's got that slow curve that has good movement and he can command it. And the pitch that I think has really been the godsend for him has been his changeup, which, by the way, he didn't start really throwing until he got to the minor.
Young guys are always afraid of throwing a changeup. Last thing they want to do is, groove some 80-mile-an-hour, and have it go 420 feet, especially in the big leagues, right?
Yeah, but he has such good arm movement on it, and he commands it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, look, Kevin Gausman has been, the last couple of years, has been a solid major league pitcher, and he has a great fastball. He's got a better fastball than Dylan Bundy from a velocity standpoint. But the thing that's held Gausman back is not having a breaking ball that's been overly effective. He's had an okay breaking ball at times, but you see with Bundy having fastball, change, and curveball, how, and when he commands all three of those, Matt Wieters talked about it after the game, kind of makes his job as a catcher really easy. You can put down just about any finger and set up nearly any location, and if he's commanding those pitches, he's going to be really, really difficult to hit. So, it's exciting, and I can tell you, his last few starts have been at home. There's a buzz at Camden Yards. Now, it wasn't a sellout on Tuesday night. This isn't Pedro Martinez mania and Boston.
It's not Fernando mania, man. Fernando mania was my favorite mania, by the way.
Yeah, but
Hulkamania. I mean, I know that was your favorite too.
Right. But it's getting to that territory where, like I said, it's appointment TV. It's appointment watching when this kid pitches, and again, everyone just hoping, praying that he stays healthy, because I think what we're seeing these last couple starts, again, it's one thing to get good results, but it just looks really, really good throughout the outing. He hasn't been perfect, he gave up a couple home runs his last time out after he had taken a no-hitter into the sixth, but overall, you just have to be thrilled with where this kid is from a development standpoint and from a health standpoint, and you just hope that the latter really continues.
All right, it is the Dylan Bundy Show. Luke Jones joining us here on WNST, and of course the Orioles winners in Game 1 of a 3-game set against the Texas Rangers, 5-1 at Camden Yards. They'll get back after it this evening and again on Thursday before taking off for Chicago, Illinois this weekend, taking on the White Sox over the weekend, and Chris Sale will still be hanging around there. And then, of course, next week, Oakland and San Francisco on the West Coast swing that I know some Oriole fans are excited about going out to the Bay Area. Luke, off of Bundy, and I know, we'll have a chance to get back after that in 4 days as well. But for the Rangers, Yu Darvish goes to the hill for them. He is not a might be, but is coming back. And much like any other pitcher, we talk about Strasburg or Bundy or other guys that have been injured, the Rangers are really kind of counting on Darvish as well for what they're trying to do in October. The long ball, big part of the game on Tuesday night. I know it's a big part of the Orioles' MO in general. Couldn't get runners on, a lot of solo home runs, but certainly Pedro Alvarez with a big bat, Adam Jones as well. Even Matt Wieters got into the party a little bit on Tuesday night. The Orioles hitting the long ball again, and I know this was something we talked so much about in July. They scuffle with the bats. I know that we would have thought that was heresy back in March, but they really did struggle. To see the bats come back a little bit, that's just as important to me as getting good starts.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. This team needs to hit and hit at a high level to give themselves a good chance to win. That's why I said their July performance, where they were a couple games below 500 for the month. In some ways, they were really fortunate in that regard because they didn't hit. And you saw with some of the offensive numbers. Matt Wieters had one extra base hit in the entire month of July. Chris Davis's struggles have been very much documented, and fans have discussed that at length. But Manny Machado didn't hit very much in the month of July. Go down the list. You mentioned Pedro Alvarez, one of the few that they had hitting in addition to J.J. Hardy in July. So Alvarez hits 2 home runs, as you mentioned. Wieters hits one out, which, as I asked him after the game, had to help also that it was from the right side. He's really struggled swinging from the right side of the plate, which historically, going back to the early years of his career, had always been his better side. So it was good to see that. Adam Jones, for as difficult as his start was, and as much as we talked about whether he was healthy with the rib issue that he had the first week of the season, and going into May, just was really struggling. He's now hitting .269. He has 21 home runs. He's driven in 63, which a lot of that out of the leadoff spot. He's having a very is he having his best season? No. Is he having a fine season? Yeah.
Well, the leadoff thing's been kind to him, and that's not what you would have ever thought of him, given his power, and given the fact that he doesn't take pitches. So, this is a very it's very buckish, right? I would say, right?
It really is. It's less than ideal from an on-base percentage standpoint. I mean, his OBP is 317. That's not what you're looking for.
Dude, he might walk 45 times this year, though. Maybe. Well, literally, he might walk 45 times.
He might walk a career high number of times, which, relative to other guys, that's not impressive. But for him, he's clearly made more of an effort to take a few more pitches here and there. And, we've seen him have better plate discipline. But it's funny, as much as we think of Adam Jones, how frustrating he can be to watch, look at his numbers over the last 6 years or so. Just consistent as can be as far as what the end results are. You can pencil him in for 25 to 30 home runs. He typically will hit in the 280, 285 kind of range. He's a little below that right now, but a lot of that has to do with how much he struggled over the first 6 weeks. And, he's going to give you dependable production, even though he's going to go through some stretches where he struggles. But nice to see the bats wake up. And you mentioned Yu Darvish. He gives up the 3 solo home runs. He was really, really good for large stretches of that
filthy,
game.
He's filthy, man. Dude, I don't want to see him in October in Game 2. I don't.
Although it's funny, his only career start against the Orioles was the wild card game in 2012.
That's right.
He had never faced the Orioles in the regular season, but you watch him, if he's not facing your team, that guy is an absolute blast to watch. He has some of the nastiest stuff, cut the ball, he'll move it around, good movement, assortment of pitches. He is that's why, the Rangers have really missed him with him going.
And he's
through
still trying to figure it out
surgery
after being injured. He and Bundy is kind of an interesting matchup on Tuesday night, where guys that have been injured recently and on pitch counts, and everybody in the organization is nervous. But more than that, everybody in the organization is also bullish, thinking like, hey, Darvish is going to win 20 games for the Rangers next year. Bundy's going to make 34 starts next year. He's going to be part of being a pile jumper, as Buck would say.
No doubt about it. And in the case of Yu Darvish, you look at that Rangers lineup. They did so much to improve the offense, but, there's been concerns about the starting pitching. And, certainly we'll see Cole Hamels in Game 2 of this series against Kevin Gausman, and Hamels has been terrific. But, there have been some questions as far as the rest of that rotation. And we've seen the Rangers, struggle for some, pretty significant stretches over the last month or so, going back to just before the All-Star break. So, I think they're really counting on Darvish, 1, staying healthy, and 2, recapturing that pre-Tommy John form where he can be the second part of a dynamic 1-2 punch that they'll take against anyone else in the American League in the postseason, assuming they hold off the Astros and win that division. So he was very, very good, other than giving up the 3 solo home runs. But you give up 3 solo home runs, that's gonna, you're gonna end up having a start where you say, well, could have been better, and certainly the Orioles came up on the winning end.
Orioles win 5-1 on Tuesday night. Wednesday night, it is Hamels and Gausman. Thursday night, it'll be Griffin and Wade Miley making his Oriole debut. And Steve Pearce did not get a chance to make his re-debut on Tuesday night, but I'm assuming he'll be in the lineup on Wednesday night against Cole Hamels. And I guess for Wade Miley and for Steve Pearce, a little press conference to start things off on Tuesday. And, in the fold, and obviously the Orioles very excited to have both these guys right now.
Yeah, and Dan Duquette, speaking in a press conference on Tuesday afternoon, said that Wade Miley's someone that they've tried to acquire at a couple different points. They tried to get him from Arizona early on in Duquette's tenure. And
that might have cost them Bundy.
Right. No kidding on that one. And because, you look at the numbers that he put up, 2 of his second and third season in Arizona. He was an all-star in 2012.
Hey, man, my man Joe Enoch put up a status on Tuesday night about how many different pitchers we wanted to acquire for Dylan Bundy over the years, right?
Oh, yeah. It really...
we've been in the race the last 4 years, right?
You know what?
A trading deadline.
It's a terrific reminder of... And look, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have dealt Dylan Bundy through... maybe they deal him a couple years ago and they get an ace and they win the World Series in 2014, but maybe not, as the Oakland A's found out with acquiring John Lester at that deadline. Sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't make. And in the case of Bundy, we'll see. His arm could, he could wake up in a couple days and his arm's hurting him. So, it can be very fleeting. But, it was interesting to hear Dan Duquette talk about the fact that they tried to acquire Wade Miley going back 4 years ago. They tried to acquire him again before he was dealt to Boston 2 off seasons ago. So, always interesting to how some things can come full circle. And I think, again, not saying that he's going to be terrific for them, but if he can just be a guy who gets them into the 6th or 7th inning with a decent chance to win, that's all you can ask for. And keep in mind, he's under contract through next year at a salary in 2017, he's going to make $8.9 million. $8.9 million is pretty reasonable for veteran starting pitching at this point in time, which speaks to how much you want to develop your own young phenom pitchers like Dylan Bundy potentially that you pay peanuts to and will give you great production. But, in the case of Wade Miley, we'll see how he fares in the finale, and Orioles hope they have made a move that helps their rotation. I think he can help, even if it is just modest improvement.
Yeah, you bring up the $8.9 million. Look, I'm going to let it lie another day, and I'll bring this up a little later in the week, but the Orioles are facing Miguel Gonzalez on Friday night at Comiskey Park. Just FYI. And it's Gallardo against Gonzalez as well. So
yeah, very interesting there. I mean, Gallardo, I know a lot of people originally thought he was replacing Wei Yin Chen, but the way it's kind of worked out, it's almost like it was Gallardo for Gonzalez, and I think pretty obvious to see how that's played out at least 2/3 of the way through the season. So that'll be interesting, no question about it. But I think everyone looking forward to seeing what Wade Miley can do. And Buck Showalter talked about this a little bit. Kind of downplayed the significance of a lefty starter. I think that's something a lot of fans talk about, but the Orioles are just looking for guys that can consistently get them into the 6th, 7th inning with a chance to win. And they just didn't have enough guys doing that earlier in the season. But Dylan Bundy, we see what he's done, and they hope that Wade Miley can be another piece of that puzzle to at least give them a chance to win.
Luke Jones can be reached, Luke at WNST.net. He's also Baltimore Luke out on Twitter. We will be tweeting and opining on all things Ravens training camp all day, and then, of course, all weekend, and, of course, the Orioles with just 2 games left before they go on this massive road trip, and the Ravens will be playing some preseason football next week as well down at the Purple Crab Cake, and, of course, practice on Saturday night. Big reminder, we have head coach Brian Billick, our WNST head coach and partner on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation, joining us on Tuesday night at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. We hope to see you out there right around 7 o'clock. Crab cakes, beer, football conversation with the coach and our Super Bowl 35 head coach and champion, Brian Billick. You can follow his journey out on Twitter as well at Coach Billick, and I know he's been camping a little bit this week on behalf of the NFL Network. It'll be fun to catch up with him on Tuesday nights. Come on out to Greenmount, get some crab cakes, and say hello to Coach Billick. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota Audio of all 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. The morning newspaper makes its way to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. You go to Planet of Triumphs and learn a little bit more and get some inspiration here to go along with your summer. Last but not least, any breaking news that happens will happen first on the WNST Tech Service. That is free of charge and powered up by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis will be here on Thursday afternoon driving you home from 3 until 5 as we get ready for football season and an honest-to-God 3-team pennant race as we get down to the wire here and the Orioles go on the road this weekend. I am Nasty at WNST.net, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, as well as Facebook Live for our video, as well as on YouTube live streaming at WNSTV. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.